Congressman
Well,
Troy Carter. Good morning. You're on with Will Sutton and Norman Robinson.
Good morning, my dear brothers. I am not easily intimidated, but I've got to say, coming up against these two rock star journalists, I got to sharpen my pencil, man.
Spoken like a politician, boy. He rubs it in, doesn't he?
I gotta sharpen my pencil.
Yeah, right.
This is the black meet the press.
Hey, you forget we know you. We know you well.
For a very long time.
That's right.
And we're watching when you don't even know we're watching.
Absolutely. And taking notes.
Yeah, but off air, Norman was telling me about some places that you've been to, and I was like, I didn't know he was up in Maine.
Oh, yeah, he was in Maine. Oh, yeah.
He
was in Maine. What was that all about, Congressman?
We did a field hearing. You may have heard of Duran Guerrera, who is an individual that was unfairly targeted and unfortunately murdered by ICE.
Yeah.
We went out to have a field hearing with the governor and the congressperson from that area, Homeland Security, along with Ranking Member Benny Thompson and I, and a number of other members, to do what our Republican counterparts won't do, and that is to shed light or even talk about the atrocities of what rogue ICE agents are doing all over the country. So we had a field hearing. We had about 300 people in an auditorium. We had the family members, surviving members of Mr. Guerrera, and noted leaders, the lawyer representing the family, to come and share information that we can take back to Washington, but equally as important, that we can illuminate in the press. Because no one's talking about this. ICE is looking the other way as if it doesn't happen. Our Republican counterparts refuse to have hearings. So we conducted what we refer to as a shadow hearing, which is a hearing that we do when we aren't in power. Of course, when you're the chair of a committee, you can hold actual hearings and you can call for testimony, you can subpoena, but only the party in charge gets to do that. So in the interim, when we aren't, we do shadow hearings, which don't have the same weight. We don't have subpoena powers for those, but it has the same weight as it relates to at least bringing illumination to what they hope would stay in the dark. The neighbors were very, very appreciative, and it really is demonstrative of the fact that Republicans are giving ICE a pass to break laws. To literally murder people in broad daylight. And this administration appears to be building a cadre of renegades that can operate at the president's will.
No question about it. And they've exacerbated this to the extent that they're now issuing ICE agents these electrical shock gloves that nobody seemingly talks about that much.
I just penned a letter, myself and Ranking Member Thompson, to the Secretary, Mark Wayne Mullen, highlighting, and I'll share with you guys a copy of it, that highlights all of our concerns about these gloves. We already know that our ICE agents are woefully ill-trained. They train approximately 47 days before getting a gun and a badge. They have next to zero background checks. Many of these people have been rejects of police departments, who have been Proud Boys, who were a part of January 6th. I mean, you know, a virtual who's who of should never have a gun or a badge, are people that unfortunately are lining up and getting badges to become ICE agents. So now they're going to have, on top of the fact that they're ill-trained, they're going to have these gloves which have the ability to essentially do what a taser does, but with a touch, without any provisions on what happens if this is used on a child, what happens if this is used on a person with a heart condition, what happens if this is used on the elderly, what happens if this is used on a pregnant woman, for example. What kind of training are they going to go through What exactly is the voltage? How do we determine if it was done appropriately or not? How do we know what the apparatus of safety to make sure that they're properly governed? Because they have different voltages. So there's just a whole lot of questions, and not to mention, now those are the ones on the public safety side. But here's the side on, a $20 million no bid contract. Once again, how much you want to bet that that's going to a buddy of Trump, and maybe even a company that his kids has ownership in?
I don't doubt that.
I mean, the graph is just amazing.
I don't doubt that at all. So, with the Democrats' hands being metaphorically tied behind their backs, what's to be done about all of this?
Well, we continue to do, as you've heard me say on numerous occasions, I refer to it as the 3 C's. The Congress doing everything we can, albeit limited because we don't have the votes, but we never accept that as an excuse. We fight every day. I wake up every day trying to find a new technical way or procedural way to stop them, and we've been very successful. Then when we run out of those, we turn to the courts. Unfortunately, the courts have been siding with the president more than we like, certainly the Supreme Court. But we've won a lot of battles at the lower court and appellate court. Supreme Court is where we have trouble. So the Congress, the court, and of course the third C is working with the community, utilizing the power of the press, utilizing the power of WBOK to have unfettered access to facts. That's why I enjoy coming on this show every week and giving people information, real live information from the nation's capital on what's happening. Because you can't depend on Fox News and increasingly even CNN and some of those places who are being infiltrated by this guy Ellis who wants to buy the station, and Trump is trying to corner the market and having only outlets that say what he wants said. So, making sure that we are fighting on every front, the Congress, the courts, and the community, working with community leaders, working with organizations throughout the state and the country to push back. And at the core of it all, encourage people that you gotta get out and vote. Trump is only president because we didn't vote in the numbers we needed to vote in.
How do we do
this
that?
This man told us that he had Project 2025. He said what he would do if he got reelected. He didn't hide his hand. He shared the whole damn book.
How do we do that, Congressman? You and Lieutenant General Russell Honoré are emphasizing the critical necessity for people to get out and vote, but it just seems to be falling on deaf ears. What's going on with that? I wonder. I wonder in my heart of hearts how we got so apathetic about the electoral process.
I really believe that it is a concerted effort on the other side to exasperate the apathy by infiltrating conversations to slow down voter participation. We know that they try every angle they can, and when I say they, I mean the Trump MAGA operation, to the Save America Act, to make it more difficult for you to get registered to vote. You can't give a person a bottle of water if they're standing in line.
Right.
Everything is designed to make it more difficult for you to vote. And the comment that I make to people is, if your vote was so unimportant, why would they be working so hard to discourage it?
Exactly.
If your voice was so unimportant, why are they working so hard to silence you? And so people have to recognize their power. But I think there's a concerted effort with the talking heads who are trying to infiltrate young black men. Trump says, what do you got to lose? What have you got from the party before? And all of those little subliminal, but not even subliminal, we used to say they were dog whistles, but now they're bullhorns that are going after and trying to divide us. And unfortunately, Norman, it works far too often. We know that people died. You know, we've all visited the Edmund Pettus Bridge. We've all seen and felt the eerie spirit of John Lewis being beaten, spat on, dogs and water hoses with Jim Crow. People having to pass the jelly bean test in order to vote. Our great grandparents going through atrocities because they knew how important it was to have a vote. And yet, our young people and many of our older people still treat voting as a if I get around to it kind of thing. We'll go to a football game before we vote. We'll go to a Mardi Gras parade in the rain, but God, let it not be raining on Election Day. I don't know the answer to that, Norman. I wish I did. But I will tell you that a solution is us all together collectively never getting tired of preaching the gospel of you've got to get out and vote. You get 10 days. Early voting, you get 10 days. One of those days you've got to find the time to stop by and vote. You've just got to.
Let me ask
because
you,
when we vote, we win.
And
when we don't, we lose.
Let me ask you this question. Are the midterms elections a litmus test for black voting power?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, and just like the litmus test throughout the state, the numerous tax measures and constitutional amendments that the governor put up, and they were killed, every single one. Litmus test.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jamie Davis, litmus test. Midterms, litmus test. We're showing what happens when we vote. Governor Landry was elected with a, 33% turnout?
Yeah.
33%. 67% of the people didn't vote.
Right.
My God.
Yep.
That's stunning.
Yep.
I mean,
yep.
you think about that, and you think about the gravity of elections do matter. Elections do have consequences. We see the result. And listen, I understand we got people that call on the show, and they'll probably call in today, and I respect the positions, although I disagree with them, that voting, we voted before, and we still haven't gotten anything. I get it. But you know what? But we can't quit. We got to just keep. You just say, that's like saying I've tried for a cure for cancer, and we haven't gotten one, so we should stop. No.
Yeah,
man.
but look at what we've
got to keep pushing. We have had progress. We still have a long way to go, but quitting is not an option. Laying down our arms is not an option. Abandoning voting is not an option. Getting involved is an option. Being vocal is an option. Participating in the process is an option. Quitting is not.
Congressman, let's talk about the Improving Care for Youth Act that you've been a part of. Our youth are our future, and let's talk about that because that hasn't been getting attention like some other things, but you're right in the midst of that.
As you know, mental health and mental health awareness and mental health resources is a space that I'm very, very active in. So I'm proud to have crafted, drafted, and introduced the Improving Coordination Access to Resource Equitably CARE Act, or otherwise known as CARE Act. Mm-hmm. And it's real simple. Under our current rules, Medicaid policy health care providers, they generally may only bill for one service, work one patient at a time. So if a person came in and they were identified as having a mental health crisis in addition to whatever, they send them away, and they're going to come back on another day. Well, I don't need to tell you what that means for some people, because some of us only go to the hospital when we have an emergent care. So something like depression or anxiety, you blow that off when you get back home.
Yeah.
Well, what this does is gives us the opportunity to allow the patient to see a multiple visits within one visit. So you can just go down the hall and see the psychiatrist, all a part of your Medicare. Some of these outdated practices discourage same-day treatment, forcing many children to schedule a separate appointment, delaying access to critical care, what this bill does is it removes that barrier, and you scratch your head and say, "Wait a minute, Congressman, this is common sense. Why hasn't this happened before?" I can walk you through the statutes and show you tons of these bureaucratic, nightmare-filled loopholes that make it more difficult and give opportunity for abuse of the system to make a person come back or to deny access to care. And we have already seen what happens with our young people because of the challenges of lack of mental health facilities or practitioners in close proximity of our children. You know, when a doctor identifies a need for behavioral health support, the patient shouldn't have to wait. They should be able to go right next door to the next room and get this life-saving care that the patient needs. Under this bill, and I'm proud to say that I've garnered bipartisan support for it because mental health is not black, white, rich, poor, Democrat, or Republican. It is a matter of reality for so many in our community. Unfortunately, in our community, probably more than any others, we tend to ignore mental health. We stick our head in the sand and don't want to talk about it. We say, "No, I'm not crazy. Nothing's wrong with me." Well, no, you're not crazy. But like any other imbalance in our body, if it's high blood pressure, diabetes, or anything else, you take a pill, you exercise, you diet. Mental health is the same way. You've got to talk to someone. You've got to exercise, diet. You've got to take medication, and you can live a normal life. But you can't expect that it will go away just because you don't want to talk about it. And we, as policymakers, have to make these health care provisions available, particularly to those who are in the greatest need, oftentimes have the greatest challenge of getting health care.
I'm encouraged that you have bipartisan support on this. Is that in the House of Representatives and the Senate
Yes,
as well?
We're working on the Senate side right now. My hope is that we will have bicameral, both houses to sign on, and that I will have Republicans and Democrats. Listen, it takes extra effort, but you got to work it. And if you work it hard and you're able to explain your point, you know, I go to some of my counterparts and say, "Man, listen, you need to look at this. You need to get outside of this, you know, hardcore conservative stuff and look at the reality. Your kids are suffering the same way. These are issues that are not just in Democratic households.
Right.
This happens all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're able to spend extra time, I've been very successful in being able to get some of my counterparts to sign on to some of these measures because, you know, we can't do this alone. I mean, we don't have the votes. And truthfully, even if we had the votes, our government is not set up to be as divisive as Trump has made it to be. A part of the system of governance and what the framers of the Constitution intended, particularly with the U.S. House of Representatives, that, you know, there are 435 of us, and our job is to be the closest lever. That's why it's called the People's House, to the people's issues. And in order to address them, we got to work together.
Yeah, I know it's Democrat and Republican, and so often people look at Medicaid as something that's in the poor places, the ways that they define poor places. But in most congressional districts, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean 20 to 25% or more of each congressional district is a part of Medicaid, which, if that's true, it's absolutely Republican and Democratic districts.
Mike Johnson, our Speaker of the House,
Mm-hmm.
has one of the highest Medicaid-dependent districts in the entire country. Did you hear me?
Yeah.
Mike Johnson, the Republican Speaker of the House, has one of the highest Medicaid-dependent constituencies in the entire country. Now let that sink in. And yet you still follow Trump down this dark path of denying some 17 million people access to Medicaid. Now that is not cutting your nose off to spite your face. if that is not completely ignoring the reality of the needs of your people, what is?
Congressman, talk to us about the state offices of women's health, a different kind of health issue that you're working on.
So one of the very last acts I did as a member of the state Senate before I was elected to Congress and had to leave to be sworn in was the passage of the Office of Women's Health. I passed this bill off the House floor, passed it out of Senate committee, and then I had to leave. And I passed it on to my very dear friend and President Pro Tem of the State Senate, Senator Regina Barrow. And we got the bill passed and got it signed into law. And very proud of being one of the first states in the country to actually have an Office of Women's Health in the state of Louisiana. And now what my State Office of Women's Health Support and Expansion Act does is it now puts some resources in this legislation creates a $55 million grant program through the United States Department of Health and Human Services, which will now take the Women's Health Office in the state of Louisiana and others that have followed. We were the model state for it when this passed. Others have followed suit. This now creates a $55 million grant program to expand those services to fortify the services of women's health office. And some would say, well, why do you think you need a women's health office? Now, I'll tell you why. Because if you look at the complexities of our sisters' bodies and you look at the number of particularly African-American women who are dying during birth, and you look at the alarming number of breast cancer, cervical cancer, and we're losing particularly black women at alarming rates. We got to do better. That means if you've got money, if you get resources, you aren't dying. But if you don't, you are. That means we have to have equality in our health care, and we've got to apply the resources to stop the flow of unnecessary deaths, particularly what we see pre and post birth. The numbers among African Americans are astounding. And that's what ultimately gave birth to my idea to create the Office of Women's Health to shine greater light on these disparities. And now what this bill does is it fortifies it by creating a grant program so all 50 states will have access to resources to expand those offices and create the kind of reach that I think will save lives.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the mortality rate for African American women during pregnancies. That's like 58% to 70% of them are making up the percentages of post of birth deaths.
Yes, that's exactly right, Norman. These are real numbers, and when you put that on paper and you start to see, one of the things I like to do in Congress is instead of just looking at spreadsheets, I bring people to committee rooms. Rather, it's people with disabilities, people who lost their kids to gun violence, people who are losing their Medicaid, and put them before committees so these members can see real people, not widgets, not spreadsheets, because they get desensitized, and these numbers don't mean anything until you see a parent sitting there crying because they lost their child, a husband who's sitting there because he lost his wife and his baby. And so when you're able to really zero in, and that's why I'm so grateful again for WBOK for giving me this opportunity to have this conversation with you guys and likewise with the community, because people need to know the struggles that are going on. And we need to know why I go back to when we vote, we win. We may not get everything we want, but every time we get another Troy Carter at the table, in the room, our voices are heard. Discussions are being had that would not be had if we weren't there. If we're not sitting at the table, even the resources we get, which may be still woefully short of what we need, we wouldn't get those. So participation is so critically important because somebody's got to be there to say what you say in the barbershop, to say what you say at the kitchen table, to say what you say at the family reunion, to say what you say when you're having discussions with your friends and colleagues. If we're not there, those discussions aren't being had.
Congressman, I know you have a couple of events, and we're going to try to squeeze in a call or two. But today in Jefferson Parish, you've got a passport acceptance event.
Yes, really excited because these have been very popular. We'll be hosting our passport acceptance event today from 9 to 12 at the Jefferson Parish Library. No appointments required. If you need more information, please visit us at all of our media platforms at Rep. Troy Carter to review what you need to bring to participate. Remember, it's no cash. You can only pay by electronic forms or credit card. No cash. We ask that you go online, print out an application to kind of speed the process. But if you don't, just come on down. We'll help you do it. And this has been an expedited way of getting a passport. If any of you know at the last minute, if you're trying to travel, or even if it's not the last minute, you're trying to travel, you get caught up in the maze of bureaucratic mess trying to get a passport. We, with what we refer to as our curbside service, have town hall meetings, several throughout the year, several throughout the entire district, where we bring services of the federal government, rather it is Veterans Affairs, Social Security, Department of Health and Hospitals, passports, IRS, to assist people with their needs, to lessen the challenge of dealing with the federal government, bring it to the people. This is an example of that, where we will have SBA agents on premise to help you with your SBA loans, to answer questions about your Social Security, to talk about how do we make sure people are ready and prepared for these massive changes that will happen with Medicaid. People have to reapply every 6 months going forward. We are working to make sure that no one falls through the cracks, and we do that by having these town hall meetings, curbside services, bringing resources to the people, demonstrating that, listen, we're working 24/7. We know that Trump and his evil apparatus, and that's right, I said evil, anybody who can systematically go and hurt so many people, in my estimation, is purely evil. So we work to counteract that by bringing resources to the people so we can help mitigate those damages. And today, if you need a passport, planning a family trip, come on out. We'll help walk you through the process.
Okay, and you got another event next week. We're going to get to that now because we're running out of time.
He's got the Community Resource Fair. That's next Thursday, August 27th at 11:30 a.m. What's that all about, Congressman?
And that's very similar. It's expanded. We bring even more agencies in. We cooperate and coordinate rather with the city and state, and we have the resources of federal government, state government, local government, all in place. We have health care, have your health screenings, come in and have your blood pressure checked. Talk about prostate cancer, one of the areas that I work very deeply in as well, with the Prostate for HIMSS Act, which is a bill that I'm navigating through the process now, which creates opportunities for people that are at risk to have easier ways and free ways to have checkups. Because we know when we are checked, we can live. You don't have to die from prostate cancer. You don't have to. Yet many of our brothers and sisters do from cancer, period. Many of our brothers die from prostate cancer. And preventive care makes all the difference in the world. Unfortunately, many of us, particularly men, the first time we see a doctor is in an emergency room because we have that macho thing. Oh, I can handle this. Suck it up, man. I'm okay. Well, that's all fine until you're looking up and in a bed saying your goodbyes to people. You don't have to die. And a part of our outreach is to make sure that we limit the senseless deaths, the unnecessary deaths, the deaths way before time of our brothers and sisters by making sure that you're screened, that you're taking care of yourselves mentally, physically, and emotionally. With this resource fair is it brings the resources of all of government, and we bring it to you. We know people are working. We know that it's hard to sometimes get to City Hall, to get to our offices, to get to the doctor, so we bring it all to you, absolutely free of charge. There'll be no ID check. I don't care where you live, where you come from. Come on in, and we're going to provide resources for you.